Welcome to the Been There, Sold That podcast, where you can take away sales and business tips to grow your business efficiently, effectively, and profitably. Take it away, Brianna Henley and Phil Whitebloom.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining the Been There, Sold That podcast. We are so excited to have a guest with us today. It's Laurie Schloff. So, Phil, can you talk to us a little bit about Laurie and introduce her to our audience?
Yes, I can.
Cool.
Thank you for asking. Hi, Laurie. We're so happy you're here.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. So we're going to jump right into it. And let me introduce Laurie to all of you. Laurie is a highly respected communication expert who helps professionals elevate how they show up, speak, and connect in high-stakes business environments. Laurie specializes in critical intersection of executive presence, authentic communication, and impactful presentation skills. Her work focuses on helping leaders project confidence, credibility, and clarity, what many refer to as executive presence, which is the ability to command attention, earn respect, and influence outcomes through how you communicate and carry yourself. At the same time, Laurie emphasizes authenticity, communicating in a way that is genuine, intentional, and aligned with who you are, not a scripted version of who you think you should be. In today's conversation, Brianna and I are going to break down what executive presence really means by asking Laurie those questions, what authenticity looks like in real-world communication, and the top ingredients that separate average presenters from truly effective communicators, those who connect, influence, and drive action. So, Laurie, welcome to the Been There, Sold That podcast.
I am so excited to be here. I really admire both of you and the work that you do.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. We're so happy to have you here. So why don't we just start out by asking you to talk about what you do and handle all the definitions and everything that go along with it.
All righty. Well, maybe the best way to talk about what I do, which we call executive communication coaching, sometimes it's literally speaker coaching to help people prepare for events, but maybe the best way is to talk about a recent client. So you may have heard of the company Iron Mountain. So I work with people who have to communicate with people internally, so not even talking about outside facing. And their leader wanted them to be better at influencing internally to get certain initiatives across. So I like working with small groups. I don't know about you. It's great to be in front of 1,000 people, but it's really hard to know, the impact that you're having. So it's a small group. We worked for 5 different meetings on influence and impact skills. Now, I'm emphasizing the word skills because when you talk to communication coaches, we're all about observable changes in behavior. So skills in messaging, skills in persuasion, skills in oral image, how you sound, very important for podcasts, nonverbal behavior, including the virtual space. So we worked as a group, and then, this is what I wanted to get across about my work, each person in the group gets a customized program. So one person might need to work on confidence or participating in a group. Another person actually might be too domineering. So we have to work on reining them in. So that's what I love about my work, and I'm sure you can relate to that every situation is so different, but yet you bring your skills, your assessment skills, your technique skills into the situation.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you. Hey, Laurie, before we dive into all that, you have a tremendous, very interesting background. I know it's a big background, so but could you share the highlights for our listeners and our viewers, please, about you?
Let's see. It started out in Cranford, New Jersey, where seriously, the most common question I get asked is, how did you get into this field? So people might find it different or intriguing. It's not the largest field in the world, but I've always been interested, Phil and Brianna, in the combination of communication, psychology, helping people, and business. But the business part, honestly, didn't start till I was somewhat mature. I started out in speech pathology and worked with young kids for the first 5 years of my career. Then I taught at Northeastern University. and train graduate students. So that's really helped me with the training component of what I do. So early in my career, because there weren't so many people in my field, and maybe I'm being a little too modest, everything took off very, very quickly. I had great mentors as well. And within the first few years, I wrote 2 books. Now, at the time, book publishing was very, very different. The publisher decided if they wanted to give you what's called an advance, if they wanted to pay for you to write. So it's very different now because it's only like the very famous people get advances, or people who are proven writers. So my 2 books came out. I think one you can see in the background, that's on male-female communication. But the one that's most popular is called Smart Speaking. And that's, I guess, a classic in the field. I've been wanting to update it, and I always joke the sequel should be Stupid Speaking. And through again, another difference was everybody who wrote a book went on what was called a publicity tour. So I was on a lot of shows, and a year after I published the book, I was on Oprah, and she had a show called I Don't Like the Way I Sound, and she had people come on the show who didn't like their voices, and I tried to help them like that on national television. So
That's so awesome.
So those are some of the highlights. But the real highlights are seeing the progress with clients and hearing from clients. One thing about getting older and wiser is hearing from clients who you worked with a long time ago and seeing how they're doing.
Very cool. Very cool. So, Brianna, what questions do you have for Laurie?
Well, first of all, I love that you were talking about working with groups and working with executive groups who have a lot of conversations with people internally, and that how important that is, that you're paying attention to things such as, nonverbal, domineering, that, you're somebody that's just speaking and people either might not receive it, or you're just taking over all conversations that you're in, and that you're actually able to understand that and bring that out of people to help them understand that, these are skills you have to hone and skills you have to pay attention to. It's not just going out there and speaking, letting it drop the mic and peace out. There's so much more that goes to it. So I am super intrigued about more, and I can't wait to read the Smart Speaking. I have not read it yet, but I can't wait to read that, because I feel like Phil and I, we speak all the time. It's constant. We're, somebody asks us,
Yep.
speak. We're doing this, in the podcast as well. And I had a bad speaking engagement just this past weekend.
Oh, let's hear what
Hear about it.
happened.
Can I be the
Yeah, and thanks for being vulnerable. I don't know if I'd say the same, but go ahead. Yeah.
At this point, I feel like there's certain things that I feel comes very easily to me. And I feel like we all do. We almost all have like our little areas of genius that we're like, oh, this is easy for me. Might not be easy. It's easy for me. And I got the yips. And it was with a bunch of students from the age of 13 to 18, inner city kids. We were showing up on behalf of a nonprofit. They were playing football. It was this tournament, 7-on-7 tournament. And they allowed us to come in and speak specifically about mental health. And I had a speaker ahead of me, and these kids only have like a 10-minute span. Okay. So speaker spoke ahead of me, and then it was my turn. And I have done this presentation, no joke, like 4 times just this past week. And I rehearsed it and kind of tweaked some things in the shower. Then when I was walking the dogs, that day,
Good for you.
like I thought I had it down. We're good to go. And then I got in front of them and I asked one question and I got feedback. And then I went to go ask another question, and I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have asked a question for them to provide me feedback, because of the setting that we were in. We're sitting outside. They're sitting in the stands in front of me. And it was like asking the one question was fine. But then once I asked the other question and people were shouting back, it took a while to kind of bring them back in, get it settled down.
Right.
And then by then I was kind of like, I was off. So it ended up fine, but I didn't handle it well. And that's not like me in that type of situation. So.
Well, I have a couple of reactions. One is your self-assessment. It's sometimes hard to self-assess. I'm also hearing that they were engaged.
They were.
And we'd have to figure out what threw you off. I know it's hard to bring young folks back.
Yeah.
But they might have been having a heck of a time and found it very memorable.
Maybe they did. It was about 50 young men, the age.
Whoa.
Yeah. So young guys, and a lot of them were from the inner city. So I guess it's not a demographic that I'm used to speaking with. I'm not used to speaking with young kids anyway. I mean, I've got a 15-year-old, but that's different. And just, again, bringing them back in and then talking about kind of like the negative self-talk that we hear in our heads and moving them forward. Okay, guys. And I did do another thing. It's like, okay, if you're thinking like, oh, I'm an idiot, what's the opposite of idiot? And they're like, smart. Or like, oh, I'm slow. Okay. What's the opposite of slow? Opposite of slow, fast. And so like they were engaging by the end. I was able to bring it in by the end, but it's like the only thing that goes in my head is the stuff that I kind of like wobbled on in the beginning.
I'm picking up on something you said, and I can't let it go, which is you were talking to them about self-talk. So you don't have to do it now, but my question to you is, what can you tell yourself about the situation that would be, I call it realistic self-talk as opposed to positive self-talk?
Yeah. And I tell and Phil knows this, I tell my people all the time, it's like, at the end of the day, write down your wins, even if it's a negative something that happened to you. So what can you take away from that? And I've been doing that, and my head just kind of keeps running away with maybe something that I said, like I'm calm, and then something else will pop up. I'm like,
of course.
I did that. So we get to see the video because it was videotaped.
Oh, I kind of like to see it myself.
Here in a hot second. So probably within this next week, so I can kind of see it again. Yay. But anyway, so what could I tell myself? I did the best that I could with the situation that we had. And I feel like that's the best that I can do right now. And then how do I need to move from this when I'm speaking in front of kids again? Because this will happen again. Yeah. Have something different, tighter, and maybe test it out. Test it out with a couple kids first, in the schools. And then that's kind of what I was thinking in my head. How can I make this better? How can I keep it tighter?
Yeah. And many times good talks are an editing process.
Yes.
And also, what you're also bringing up is tweaking it for the audience. I don't like it when a client has to do 12 different talks. I try to help them to have like a couple of core talks, which they adjust to the particular audience, adding in a few examples and stories. But I think you're on your way. It's going to keep you in the healthy self-assessment zone.
Yeah. So Laurie and Brianna here. So Brianna, I've known for a long time. Brianna, I've heard you speak more times than I could ever remember. And, here's the same thing. It's what we tell each other all the time in private. And what we tell our clients and everybody else is, first, one time does not make a trend.
True.
And two is, just like any, winning athlete or anything else, when they have a bad play, it's behind them. They move on immediately, and they put that aside. They could go back and look at the film, the video, whatever you want to call it, and they could analyze that. But you immediately get going. If it was like you're stumbling all the time and things like that, then we have to hire Laurie for you. but this was a one-off, and you could also just drive yourself nuts, and no problem.
It's
Go ahead.
interesting. Yes, I do work with people who need help, but the majority of people I work with are already very successful and they just want to get to the next level. So let's say someone who's been doing a lot of keynotes at either nonprofit or at or not feeling confident enough to be paid for it.
Mhm.
So they'll come to me to get to the, the next level. And between all of us, I love working with the talented people. It's just more challenging.
Well, and I know you're going to say something, Phil, but very quickly,
Mm.
I like when you said have a couple things that you do, a couple talks that you do, inside and out, right? The back of your hand, and you're able to tailor and tweak based upon your audience. Because I feel like with Phil and I, we're saying the same stuff like over and over. We're saying similar things, but I love that you pointed that out, that you're not reinventing the wheel. You're not trying something new all the time necessarily. But if you're a speaker, if you're somebody that's standing in front of somebody, you've got a couple core things that you're focused on, and to get really good and hone in on those
Right.
things.
And it also relates to branding.
Yep.
And it also relates to limit setting. So recently I talked to a young woman. She's doing great with being asked to speak about AI, but she's saying yes to everything. And she wasn't in control of what the topic was. So I really wanted her to think about telling the people who want her what she wants to talk about, and then they can negotiate.
A good point.
So, Laurie, a couple of things you said you really caught my attention here, and one of the things I would like you to talk about is what is the problem that you solve? When you're talking to somebody, you could be at a networking meeting, you could be a social environment, but what is the problem that you solve? And kind of either you could do this up front or afterwards. This part, when you said what you said about some of your best clients are the people who are already skilled and who already have experiences and they're talented already in these areas. Brianna and I find the same thing, and we want to help others who need a lot of assistance to get them to be successful. I mean, that's all the three of us have in common. It's all about getting people to be successful. And you're right. The people who already have so much experience, they're the ones who are the most open to all kinds of assistance. And the people who have the least amount of success or experience, they're the ones who want it, but they're the most hesitant. So what are your thoughts on that? And could you address, the problem you solve and how you could handle all this, however you want to get it together there? But I'm very interested.
Okay. So again, remember, I'm hired for results, and sometimes I'm hired for very quick results. Meeting someone on a Monday who's just not in good shape regarding a board meeting they have on Friday. And
Wow.
I'm hired for. And if they're good, I get more business. So the essence of what I do is asking the question, what does this person need to do? And by do, I mean observable behaviors. Say, sound, and look like and interact in a way that will help them to achieve their goals. So almost always I start with, what's the goal? And, and who are the listeners?
You had a great story that you started with. And what are the key pieces of advice that you could pass on in this kind of one-way conversation out to our listeners that they should really concentrate on to be a quality communicator?
Well, first of all, just being aware of, which I've said several times, the essential components of communication. What is my message? Is it organized, structured, influential? Second, how do I sound? There are people who just don't come across as competent in the way that they sound. And that includes, I'm getting very technical here, speed, fluency, the smooth flow of thoughts, their speech clarity, Later on, I'll be seeing a person who's totally understandable in English. She just wants some refinement. And because of my speech background, I'm able to handle that. It's a very technical skill. You look like you had a
Well, no,
thought.
I like that you mentioned that because it's not just, I mean, all these things that you're talking about are so important, right? Being organized, structured, influential, it builds to the confidence. You know, what are you going to say? What is the sound? What do you look like? How do you interact? And then if you are someone who might not be as confident about your accent or how you're conveying your message, to be able to call you and work with you, because sometimes that right there, I mean, I feel like that could be a little bit sticky for an executive, is like, you know, I've got a French accent or an Indian accent, or there's something going on there. And I feel like people aren't receiving me the way I want to be received. So being able to work with you to kind of tailor that and just to change, because usually it's just a couple little tweaks that how words are being said, or maybe the cadence or something, an accent. So I didn't even think about that until you said it. I'm like, that's huge. That's huge.
Thank you. I'm glad. It's a very technical skill. And there's so many components to communication. I'm talking about what we can control. But for example, I have a client who's from Asia and finding herself in the deep South.
Ooh.
Working for a large company, and she's trying to observe, which I think is great, cultural differences.
Yeah.
So there's many things, and you know a lot about organizational behavior and all that. I tend to focus more on the human behavior, but I of course want to be conscious of everything that affects, you know, a client's comfort, confidence, and how they're perceived.
I love that. So what are the different ways that you work with clients? So we heard one-on-one and group. What other?
Yeah, one-on-one and group. And I'd say the sessions are straightforward. I have a toolkit called the Presence 26 Toolkit. You know, hopefully we'll all collaborate someday, and I'll share that with you and your clients. And that, again, here I am saying the same thing again. It's tried and true tools in messaging, oral image, nonverbal behavior, and interactive skills. Interactive skills is bigger than ever because people are wondering, how the heck do I keep people's attention in a virtual meeting?
So true.
Right.
And leaders aren't trained onto how to run great meetings. And I view it as a fundamental. So most sessions consist of the techniques, learning the techniques, and applying the techniques to upcoming situations.
That's awesome.
How do you work with people that they don't handle it well when somebody throws them a curveball in the middle of whatever they're doing? They could be just doing a presentation speech, but they could also be at a board meeting. They could be presenting their case, and then somebody throws them a curveball, which is a very diplomatic way of other things I could say. And how do you coach them in those areas? Do you have any good stories that you could share for that?
Well, that's a good point to bring up, because that is a very, very common concern. So you will hear clients say, I'm good when I'm prepared, but if somebody throws me a curveball or asks me a question that I don't know what they're talking about, or it seems like a dumb question, what do I do? It all starts first with mindset, which is, no matter what happens, I know my stuff. I've prepared my stuff, we hope, and I can handle it. Now, the way they handle it is important. So, for example, and again, it's all technique, accept, redirect. Phil, I'd love to talk about your stamp collection from Tibet. What I'd like to do now, though, is to continue to focus on the key elements of nonverbal behavior.
Oh,
I know it's a little bit dramatic, but and then
but Laurie, when you deliver with a smile, everybody's like, that's great. Keep going. Yes.
Right. And well, that if someone delivers it in a way that shows that they're not uptight about not knowing. And
Okay.
We know the standard one is to say, I wish I had that at my fingertips.
Right.
Let me get back to you, Phil. And saying it, that you're
Right.
kind of really okay with not knowing it.
Right. Well, when
Yeah.
you're dealing with the
Yeah.
executive levels and people who are up against professionals and who's every bit as talented as they are and experienced, but maybe have a different mission, or that's especially going into the meeting
Yeah.
or whatever you're doing. I've had the benefit and pleasure over my career of working with or around some very high level people in the government and other places, and they would have coaches before they went on 60 Minutes or 2020 or whatever it is. And they would rehearse them to death because some people are very argumentative. And when somebody says something challenged to them, they snap. Not that we've ever seen that ever in our own political world. And that's generally, and that's exactly what the other person is trying to get them to do, is trying to just get under their skin and get them to snap or say something that they shouldn't have said or be going to be sorry. And once it's recorded, right? So that's a tough thing. I mean, now I know we're probably into your graduate level coaching things, but what would you tell, how do you work with people at that level? Because you don't have to be at that level to have somebody who's just kind of not necessarily the most understanding person on the other end of the receiving end of the meeting.
Right. Well, the motto, preparation, not desperation.
Oh, cool.
Usually by the time you get into the media, doing a podcast, you've been out there a bit. I mean, there's always the first time. But again, it's mindset and controlling your bodily reaction. No matter what comes my way, I'll be okay. And I expect this reporter to challenge me. People like people who are, this sounds crazy, like people who are likable. So answer in a way that makes you look like a very appreciative person without BS, and then stick to your guns in terms of what your answer is. Laurie, don't you think communication is a bunch of bull? Joe, I totally appreciate any perspective on communication. Love to talk to you more about it. Based on what I've seen, I think it can be really a deal maker when it comes to your two careers. That's what I've seen after working with thousands of clients.
Oh, very nice. Very good. Hey, so I know you have a coaching certificate program.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it would be a crime for us not to have you talk about that. How could you tell us about that? I mean,
Sure.
is.
So I do two things. One is what I've said before, working directly with people. And then in the past year, I've started Train the Trainer program. And again, based on what I've already shared with you, that I love working with motivated people. I work with folks who are either in learning and development, are already coaches, or just want to learn these tools to pass them along. So it's a 20-hour certificate program in which they learn the Presence 26 toolkit. They learn communication coaching skills, which are different than pure coaching skills because you're changing behavior. And third, they work with actual clients, usually in their company or people that they know. And they receive expert feedback, video feedback, peer feedback, hopefully, if they're working with someone else in the group, or from their leaders or peers at their company. And that combination of things leads them to feel really comfortable and valued in their organization for knowing these particular skills.
Well, that's pretty cool. Hey,
yeah.
so for all of you who are listening, I know you're going, oh man, how do I learn more about that? I'm driving and everything else. I got good news for you. Just look right down here at the description, right below, and there's a link that'll take you to Laurie's group coaching certificate program there, and you can learn more about it. Just click on that link, and that's how you find it. So you don't worry about, keep your eye on the road if you're driving, and it'll be there when you stop. So we encourage you to click on that. Laurie, what kind of message would you like to deliver to everybody out there? What would be the giant takeaway from you to the audience?
Well, I'm going to start with something you mentioned at the very beginning, that the goal of being an outstanding communicator is to combine your authentic self, which is being true to your values and who you are, with the best practices that we know from the field of communication coaching. And that's golden.
That's a great place to leave it.
I agree.
So, Brianna, any thoughts?
Yeah, so thank you, Laurie, so much for popping on here. And if anybody would like to get in touch with her or see more on you, because I feel like for me, I'm like, oh, now it's time to binge watch. Let's check out some social media, some Instagram, and I know you have that. So definitely make it a point to check out Laurie, see what she has, and reach out to her. I mean, she is a wealth of knowledge, and she clearly is creating communicators that deliver results. She knows her stuff. So please reach out to her if this is something that you're thinking about. And we truly appreciate you guys listening in. Thank you, Laurie, for coming today. And Phil?
Yep. And Laurie, we'll have Laurie's got 2 books she mentioned earlier on. We'll have the information right here in the description also, so you'll be able to see them there. And Laurie, thank you very much. We're thrilled that you're here today, and we look forward to talking with you again in the near future. So until next time, everyone, good selling.
Take care.
Thank you for tuning in to the Been There, Sold That podcast, where you can take away sales and business tips to implement directly into your life and business. Check out BeenThereSoldThatPodcast.com for more information on where to find Phil and Brianna.